There's so many great scares in the show, and so many have to do with like supernatural stuff. But there was an episode that we did where we had these parents who had this little boy who was
yes,
psychotic and or possessed, we don't know, and they end up, we think, killing him.
Yes,
because he was trying to kill their and that I'm a new parent, and just echoing what Kurt said, just the idea of that is so terrifying. Like the moral and ethical and psychological dilemma that happened in that moment. And I think that is one of the most disturbing things that we ever did on this show, outside of all the other scary, great stuff. But that was very disturbing for me personally.
I'm a Verizon engineer. We built our 5G nationwide so millions of people could do what they love in Verizon 5G quality. And in parts of many cities, we have ultra-wideband, the fastest 5G in the world. This is 5G built right, only from Verizon.
welcome to PaleyFest. I'm Whoopi Goldberg. I'm delighted to be your host for this special festival conversation honoring the CBS series Evil, a show I really like, so I'm thrilled to be here. Special thanks to the PaleyFest's official card, Citi, and welcome to the Citi card holders watching the show. Thanks to festival sponsor Verizon for helping to make this event possible. And today we are thrilled to welcome the members of the amazing cast and creative team of CBS's Evil. Joining us are executive producers Michelle and Robert King, cast members Katja Herbers, Mike Coulter, Asif Mandvi, Michael Emerson, Christine Lati, and Kurt Fuller. Everybody welcome. Asif, I know I'm messing your name up. You're going to have to help me. I will ask you in a little bit because I'm slow. I'm just going to start with that.
No, you did a B+ job. It was great.
Okay, I'm going to try to make it an A by the time we're done. So I guess I'm going to start with you, Robert and Michelle. How did this come to you? I mean, were you laying in bed and one of you rolled over and said, you know, honey, I've been thinking about good and evil. I want to make a show. Where did this come from?
That's kind of it, except we've been rolling over in bed for over 30 years and basically just saying it over and over. It gets tedious, and eventually you just have to make the show.
We have a big difference in our backgrounds. I'm good old Catholic boy from Catholic family of 9. And Michelle
is more of a secular Jew.
And I think what it really came down to reacting to what's going on in the world today, and a feeling not just with what's going on in politics, but with school shootings, or just there just seemed to be this sense, and incels communicating with each other, there seemed to be a sense that there was this growing unease and growing anger that seemed to lead you to this idea of what is the cause of evil. And I would think it's more supernatural or transcendent. And you would think
that it's more rooted in psychology.
So it literally has been a series of conversations.
I think, yeah. I mean, go ahead.
No, it's that plus Robert mentioned the political, wanting to show that people can have very different ideas and yet speak about them in respectful, civil ways.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what we really like about the team of 3 is they really do disagree as almost anybody could, and about issues that are causes for wars, but really try to understand each other's points of views and try to understand then their own point of view and how it might change through debate or conversation.
And are you shocked that most people are afraid to watch this show by themselves?
Yeah, I was actually. I was taken aback by that response. Because when you're there, when it's being filmed, you know, you see the guy putting on the suit. There's nothing scary about it. You've got little kids running around the set. They don't seem scared. But it's a different matter once, you know, it goes through the camera.
We understand, as you do too, how to devise a joke to make people laugh. And
Yeah.
so we understand the inner structure of it. What was difficult for us to understand and to work towards was the inner structure of scares, of horror. And that is a little more like a mix of David Lynch and, you know, Roger Corman. There's a little bit of both there.
Well, I have to tell you, it is probably one of the scariest shows that I think I've seen on network television, because I got to tell you, this is borderline Exorcist scary. You know, when the demon comes, you know, on the ceiling, and you're watching and you're thinking, I don't know if I want to get into bed. Because I don't know what's going, you know, is this real? And so when you watch it, it's really kind of thrilling. And Katja, I have to ask you, as the forensic psychologist with working with the church, did you have to, like, when you got the script, did you say, oh, I can feel her? Or did you have to like find a forensic psychologist that was working with the church?
Oh, okay. Again, I'm going to just say how starstruck I am. So I am drinking a canned margarita in style of my character. So I'm gonna probably not be very articulate because of you, Whoopi. Okay, so yes, I did have to. Well, first of all, I had no doubt that I immediately wanted to do it because of Robert and Michelle King and what they had done and how amazing the script was and how multifaceted my character was and the journey that she goes on. And I just approached it as a mother, which I am not, but I can imagine to be one. And I've always been very interested in psychology, so that came handy. I studied psychology for a bit, and I took it from there. I don't know much about the church because I grew up in Holland, and we're all very secular over there. And I think that kind of worked out well for me. So I just entered the journey as myself, aka Kristen, and it formed from there.
I tell you, it's really something. And Mike, I have to ask you as well. Did you know there were things called priests in training? I went to Catholic school, never heard of that. Did not know you had to be, I thought either you were going to be a priest or you weren't going to be. I didn't know you could train. So did you sit down with priests in training and talk to them?
Well, we have, I think seminarians is probably the closest thing to what I am. Mm-hmm. And I actually have a friend who was an actor. We trained together in grad school, and he became a pastor or minister.
Right.
So I was able to steal some stuff from him, and the transition of what it's like to sort of not quite be there yet and to see the journey. And also we need to be able to let David do some things. So I think there's this part of us telling a story that allows you to sort of see a person who isn't completely already converted into this lifestyle and is sort of making his way there. So it allows for consideration of doubt, which is what's important about his character. He's really adamantly convinced about all the things that he's doing, but there's always this doubt. He invites that into his life, which isn't a good thing. I mean, he literally invites Kristen and Ben to basically challenge him every time he goes on a case. And that's something that most people don't do. You don't surround yourself with people that contradict you.
You don't? If I had only known. Nothing but people that contradict. As your character is, I know, is a lot of the comic relief, but for me, you carry a lot more fear. If you're afraid, then I get really nervous.
Right.
Because, when phones start going and they're not supposed to, and you're talking to your sister, and I see on your face or your character's face that something's coming and I should turn the light on.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
When you read this character, did you feel that he was going to be really a big part of the catalyst for fear?
Well, it's interesting that you put it that way. I when I read the part, I thought this guy is very different than me. And, Ben is such a grounding force. Like he is, I think of him as like the baseline, and sort of he is, so you're right in the sense that like, if Ben is afraid, then things are really out of whack and things have gone, because his whole sort of modus operandi is to explain it and to figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then we're all in a different sort of paradigm, you know? So for me, I loved the idea of playing this character, and I was so excited when the Kings asked me to do it, because he allows me to stretch a part of myself that I can't even, like, you know, I can barely change a light bulb. And so, you know, I think that he allows me to, like, find this other part of myself, this sort of more empiricist, sort of empirical, kind of grounded, fact-based, science-based guy, which I love. I love playing that color, because I haven't gotten to very often.
And Christine, now, you know, you are the hot mama of the mama, okay? And I very much appreciate that, because, of course, you know, mamas are hot mamas of mamas. As one, you know what I mean.
I do.
She's really sexy, and she does have a lot of fun with her grandkids. And she's just loose and happy. But she's not totally happy. Something, I mean, we know what's coming because I watched, but her character is in search and really could put everybody in danger. And is this a character that you thought, well, I can find the ways to allow her to be as hot as possible and yet still kind of be a little bit rough?
Yeah, I didn't think about her hotness much. I'm flattered that you did.
No, you're not. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. You're definitely hot. Just say.
Thank you. Okay, so what I did think about was how dark she could go. And when you're working with the Kings, it's so exciting because you have no idea how dark it can go. And at first I thought, well, Cheryl's so far just kind of a hot grandma, and she babysits, and what else? And then what else? And then I saw what else. And like my favorite episode was when I advised one of my granddaughters who was being bullied to take a brick and hit him right there, hit the little girl right there, and then, or a stone. And because if you don't make them your bitch, they'll make you theirs. Yeah. So I feel like Cheryl has had some dark run-ins with probably some bullyish, predatory men that she's had to take a couple of bricks or stones herself and defend herself. So I think that she gives good advice to her grandkids, if not a little bit controversial. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I like that. I like that. And Michael, you know, I can't tell whether you are Satan or whether you're just one of those kind of guys that's just a pure butthole. I can't tell. And I feel like you're having a lot of fun. I feel like you're having a whole bunch of fun, both as the character and as yourself. Do you know who he is? Or is he going to continue to evolve and move around?
Bad guy. He's a bad actor, and I'm not sure he's the head bad guy.
Right.
But he's an office holder, and he enjoys what he does, and I enjoy him enjoying what he does. It's good to be the villain.
Tell me about that. I often wondered, because nobody will ever let me be a bad guy.
There's so many different things to do. You know, they can have so many colors and so many psychological strategies and camouflages. You know, it's a buffet for a character actor, I think, and a real riot.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, when you look at what the show's about, do you believe in evil or good? And, you know, are these kinds of things real? Or do you find yourself wondering what you believe? Or are you sure about what you believe? Has this affected any of you in terms of thinking about where you stand in all of this? Michael, I guess I'll start with you.
I feel the same way I usually do when this subject comes up, which is that I think there's mostly rational or scientific explanations for the things around us, but there is a small percentage of things, phenomenon, that are inexplicable somehow, and it starts you thinking, and it begins, and we feel compelled to find an answer, to put an explanation on it, and it's fun and thrilling and dangerous. So it's theatrical in a way. So I like that stuff. I like to think about ghosts and demons.
Right.
I haven't had a lot of practical experience with it.
Which I'm thrilled to hear, actually, since we're all sitting here together. But Kurt, now you, no one is sure about you because you seem to have, a lot of really good answers, and you seem to be there supportive, but you also, there's some really creepy happening with you. Do you?
Wow.
I could be just projecting, but I just feel like there's more and not really pleasant stuff about your character.
And I thought this was going to be a question about Dr. Boggs' hotness. Okay. You know what? It's interesting because I have played a lot of bad guys in my life. And sometimes I've thought I was playing good guys and they always turn bad. And I understand that Dr. Boggs, part of his problem is that he's Kristen's friend and her therapist, which is almost an impossible dialectic kind of thing to do, because it's very hard to be someone's friend and their therapist. And I'm always trying to figure out where the line is. And that's some of the sort of reticence that you might see in me. I see myself, honestly, as I think he's going to stay. I think he's going to be good. I hope he doesn't turn bad. I don't want to influence the writers in any way, but I hope he doesn't turn bad because I think Kristen needs a lot of help. I think she's in real trouble, and I hope that I'm the guy who's going to pull her out of it, because she is, in my opinion, sinking. You don't believe me, or you're not convinced.
I just am not sure that you're the one.
Okay.
But that's just me. That's me talking to the television right now.
Right.
It's not you. That's me yelling.
I understand. We don't know, we don't know. You could be right. But I'll tell you something. Somebody's got to help her, because she's sinking fast.
Now, is it exciting for you to not be sure in what direction your character's gonna go?
Yeah, because then I don't know. Then I don't choose. Then I just try and go straight ahead and do the best I can with every second. And I don't have to judge at all. And I find that actually very exciting.
So this is for the Kings, and this question comes from the festival sponsor, Citi. And they want to know, with most productions on pause for most of 2020, how have you and the cast adapted to the new way of filming?
Well, first of all, I would say we have a spectacular line producer, Kristen Bernstein, who's really put everyone's safety first and is thinking about this endlessly. And, we collaborate with her. There's testing, there are fewer people on set.
I would say it even goes back to the writer's room. Our first episode, we were originally going to set in a subway station, a haunted subway station. There was one subway station in New York where a lot of people kept committing suicide in front of the trains, and we thought that'd make a great episode. And obviously, with COVID, that is not a great idea for an episode. Right. So we rebuilt the first 3 episodes based on what we thought we could do safely on our sets. The good news about having such a strong cast, we were able to keep it more limited on our sets. I mean, we still go outside, but we were worried about the New York permit situation too. So we've had to pull in our sights a little bit on the scope sometimes, but sometimes the scope is about the performances and the tensions between people. And obviously Joel Harlow's creatures are not a problem. So I would say there was a slight delay because of everybody wanting more confirmation of how the makeup would work, because the makeup chair for someone putting in a creature outfit is long and long. So they wanted to make sure how that would work with the new, COVID protocols that seem to work on other shows. Now, here's the good news is in New York, we seem to have a very sympathetic crew that is really being very diligent about obeying all the protocols. And, and I think, as Michelle said, Kristen, who's our line producer, seems to be doing a great job with keeping us moving forward.
It's good to know, because people can then utilize what you all have done and get their shows up and running as well.
I think for everybody, we're all learning from each other. We stay in touch with a lot of showrunners, how they're dealing with it. And, some are in Vancouver, some are in LA, and what are they doing? But I do think we are all feeding off of each other and also feeling how Zoom will work for all of us in the future.
Yeah, it started with that. I mean, the writer's room was entirely on Zoom this season. And I think that the episodes do not suffer at all.
No.
And yet it's hard on the writers because we like each other.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you don't have that same level of intimacy, look, it's nothing compared to what other people are truly suffering.
Right.
But, it's a little bit of a loss. Same with the culture on a set. And you know this well. There's a warmth there on a set that's working right.
Yeah.
And not when you stay 6 feet apart and you aren't hugging at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
And of course, it's for the right cause of keeping people healthy. But, again, it's different.
Yeah, it's very different. People really dig the show. I mean, they're very attached to it in a way that was surprising for me, because you don't meet very many people who watch scary stuff. They watch semi-scary stuff, like the show on Fox or Supernatural or something like that, which is sort of semi-scary. It's not like, but this is like.
I think people like it because of the chemistry of the cast. And also all of them are a bit of comedians. Yes. They can all handle comedy. So you're never quite sure how the show will come at you. Like the best meal you might have, you'll always be a little surprised by the next course. And I think what this show does, which I really love, and I wish we could say it's the writing, but it's really cast, is you might be in something you think is horror and then you go to a joke or a comedy and then the reverse. So I think that's very welcome by an audience, because it's not just going for the jugular with scares only.
But isn't that what horror is?
Completely.
You get afraid and you start laughing.
Or see anybody getting off on a roller coaster. I mean, the reaction is laughter. Like, can you believe that we went through that scare? But I do think it's that, but also the four daughters and everything going blah, 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 blah. You'll be suddenly in a horror moment, and then the next beat, like when Katya comes upon the lady giving birth in the cornfield, you'll follow that up with the daughters all, spitting out their toothpaste because they're just bickering and going on. So I think that's kind of what's welcome, is you're not sure what you're going to see is innocent or something the darkest thing you've seen.
The rest of you, what do you think, Christine?
I was just going to add that I agree with all that. I think the humor helps a lot. I think the way that the Kings are willing to take on very tough topical issues like Incel. I mean, who takes on Incel but the Kings? And really delve into that and taking on systemic racism and taking on, sexism and the politics of Trump and it's really so current that I think people can relate to it on that level. I also really lean into the psychopath explanation of these miracles or demonic possessions. I think that these people are not evil. I don't believe in any of that. But I do agree with Michael that there are a few things that are unexplained. I mean, I have seen a ghost. Just saying. I saw one. I was a little stoned when I saw it. Maybe a lot, but I saw one. So I can't explain that.
What about you, Asu?
I have thought I've seen ghosts, but I probably haven't. But I also personally come from a place where I believe in a lot more of that stuff than Ben does. And this show has definitely screwed with my mind. Like being in this world like the other day, my wife got some gloves for Christmas, and then she had them on and she put them down, and we lost them and we could not find them for 3 days. And I was convinced that a jinn had taken them away, which is an Islamic demon. And so suddenly I'm like in this world where this is the way my mind goes now. And then I started going to Ben, and I'm like, what would Ben do right now? He would figure this out, is what he would do, and find these gloves. So I spent 3 days trying to be Ben and find the gloves. I did find them. So yeah, in a weird way, entering this world has definitely played with my head a little bit.
And I should say, also came to the writers' room and told us about one of the folklore things told by his grandmother, and we put it in the show this next season coming up.
Yeah, it's kind of it's scary. It's can I talk about it? I don't know if I want to talk about it.
Yeah, you can talk about it.
Oh, it's basically the story that my grandmother told me when I was a child, where the little town that she lived in India, there are these actually, we found a name for it. It's called churels, and there are these women that walk the streets at night, and they are in folklore in Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh and places, and they are often prostitutes, and they look incredibly beautiful, but they're not real. They're ghosts or demons, and if you look down at their feet are turned backwards. And this is how you know that they're not human. And this it just scared the pants off of me when I was a child. And I remember just like this story has been in my head since I was like 8 years old. And so of course I told Robert about it over drinks one night. And then I told the writers about it again in the writer's room. And then it's in the show this season. So, you know, I'm really excited to have like my grandmother be represented.
Absolutely. And it lends a different quality to the show, because it's not the run-of-the-mill, I looked this up in my book kind of spooky stuff. This is something we don't know. And so it's kind of amazing and a great addition. Now, Katja, does any of this resonate with you, or do you think about, are there demons? Are there not demons? Are there devils? Or, well, you're Dutch, so it's I was married to a Dutchman. I know. He's very practical. Very practical. This stuff doesn't exist. Boom. But has any of this sort of loosened you up a bit?
Well, I do like going on Kristen's journey. I'm also a total scaredy cat, so I try to keep it at bay. I have one good ghost story where I used to have a lot of headaches when I was growing up, like a lot, and it was debilitating. And I once a girlfriend of mine said, you should go to a woman in the woods and she might be able to help you. And I did. And then she said, yeah, you have these headaches because you're carrying around 36 ghosts. And you don't have to believe this, but I'm going to take them away. And I was like, okay, great. And she took them away and she talked to all of them, and like 3 or 4 didn't want to leave. And then once she had them all take a bus, which is what she did, and go away, I never had another headache. So I do believe in some kind of, even if I probably look at it as a therapeutical thing of letting go something that I was holding on to. Yeah, but I'm pretty Dutch about it all. Aside from that.
And what about you, Michael? You're the skeptical priest, not sure he's going to be, where do you stand in the reality of all of this?
Well, I guess I'm one of those people that I'm the kind of person, I will take the opposite perspective on anyone who wants to debate, even if I agree with you. I'm a contrarian by nature. So David, it feels right to me. In life, what I love about the show is that it validates and legitimizes people's points of view and perspective in a very substantial way. So they feel seen and heard, and they feel like it's their show. Even if the argument is equally balanced, they step into it feeling like people are taking me seriously, and my perspective is being heard, and they almost feel like it's their show, no matter which side they're on. Right. I've met people who are, I would say clergymen or people who are in the church, and because of David, being a Catholic, they say things to me, and I'm like, I don't know what to say, because honestly, it's scary. I'm like, they're talking to me like I see them too. you talk? Like, they literally say things like that. There are people who want to pray with me. They're like, they want to be technical advisors on the show. They literally have this connection. And I don't know what to say to them because it's scary, because I know if I encourage it, they're going to continue to try to like reach out. So I try to like be as very, as diplomatic as possible, but I love that about the show. I love the fact that there's no one that feels like their point of view is not legitimate. And that's what's going to keep the debate going, because I like debate.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is because your character seems to have, I don't know if it's an ex-drug problem or what, I'm not sure what it is, but he's seeing things and I'm not sure what's bringing them on. I don't know if God is, blessed him with his finger or whether it's the drugs. Is that going to remain a bit of a mystery?
Well, I think the great thing is that I don't think David knows what's bringing it on. I think it's like one of those things, he's chasing the dragon or chasing the high. Like, he saw something, he felt something. And whether it was the mix of drugs or whether it was actually something that God, opened up for him to see, he's not sure, but he's trying to see it again any way, shape, or form possible. And I think ultimately he doesn't know. So the fact that, he experimented with drugs in his past, he thinks that maybe this is a gateway, maybe this is something that can unlock this thing, this third eye. So he's going to work with that, and he's open to, because what I talked about with Robert is that he's jealous of people who can see and talk to God. People who have a connection with God, or someone thinks they're close to God. He feels like he should be closer to God. If that makes sense. Like, some people who feel like they have a personal relationship with God. I talk to God all the time, that kind of thing. When someone says they talk to God, David's like, really? He might not say it, but he feels a little bit like, that's my thing. That's what I do. And so he sort of feels like he has a personal relationship and a connection that he wants to hold. And so that's his own thing. And he doesn't really talk about it, but I feel like it drives a lot of him. He wants to be as close to God as possible. He really wants to be that guy.
I think that's why one of my favorite scenes is the scene with you and Grace, the prophet, where you're just, what does God want from me? Because I do think that is the question you have basically at the base, which is, what does God want? Can I ask you, Mike, the religious people who were really approved of you in the show, what did they think of the drug use?
Most of them, they didn't really have a problem with it, because when you think about mushrooms, I mean, it's a natural drug. If there is one, it's an herb. It's from the earth. So I don't think they were so offended by that. If it was like a recreational drug, we were dropping LSD, or we were doing cocaine or shooting heroin or something a little stronger, maybe. But I think the mushroom thing was sort of like burning incense, burning sage. It's sort of in that vein. It's a tea, it's an herb. But nobody really ever had a problem with that. But they would just say that they also saw those things or also talk with God too. And they didn't mention whether they were using drugs or not, but they felt like, hey, I'm with you. And I'm like, okay, I would leave it at that.
I can give you one piece of advice about that. When they come up, and people will come up and say, can you see my husband? I really wanted to. And I say, it's just a movie.
Yeah, I want him to keep watching, so I don't want to ruin it for him.
But you have to be based for yourself in reality, because you can start believing that you're doing all of that.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there. But so I'm going to ask another wild question. I'll ask of the Kings. How are you able to talk about things? Because Christine brought it up. Talk about things like race and how women are treated, and all of the other things that very few people will even come anywhere near. Is it the fact that y'all know that this fits well in the show and it will work, and you don't have any problem saying, this is what we're doing, please back away? Or are you fighting these on a consistent basis?
Well, I'll start by saying we have an incredibly smart writer's room. And so these are the topics that interest all of us. And so it's personally hard for me to imagine doing this show and not dealing with these topics. I mean, if you're talking about evil, I don't understand how racism or sexism doesn't come up. And in terms of how are we allowed to do it, we get no pushback from the network.
Right, it's strange.
They have embraced it completely. So, you know, we're very fortunate in that regard.
And we probably started the year knowing we wanted to address the incel situation.
Mhm.
And another one, we wanted Christine's character to give advice that Trump might give to a daughter, you know, about snitching is the worst thing. So we always knew there were certain things we'd hit, but I do think showrunners get credit for things that are actually about the writer's room, which we like taking. So we love that praise because it's well earned, you know, it's unearned praise. So, but the writer's room is obsessed with that stuff. They, you know, they're all researching constantly. It's not something they just throwing out from the top of their head.
I was going to say, but it's nice because not only are they obsessed with the problems of the world, they're also horror obsessed, and many of them are very religious. So, you know, it ties together very well.
Wow. And there is a huge attraction, one has to point out, between your character and Michael's character. And I wonder, is that going to be unrequited? Is that something that will evolve? Or is it just a marker in time? Just to say, yes, you're kind of cute, you're kind of sexy, but I'm not going anywhere with you because my husband's up in the mountains. What's happening with that? Is there a relationship that is budding?
Well, I think they're very interested in each other's minds. I think that's where it starts. And, you know, Mike doesn't have his looks working for him. So it's really just mind.
She has to do that. She had to. So I think, you know, Katya's character, Kristen, is the aggressor. So if anything happens, it's going to have to be her. Obviously, you know, and I think more will unfold in the second season, but David is trying his best to stay the course and to do what he feels is more fulfilling. He doesn't want to just, you know, succumb to his flesh and to give in, because for all he know, you know, as you saw at the end of the first season, we don't know what's going on with Kristen. So I think David's trying his best, but there is an attraction there, but I'm not sure if I can trust Kristen.
And also, you got the sister. Also, you know, you got a young woman of color who's kind of trying to get.
Oh well, she basically took David's virtue. She took his virtue from him in his room. I mean, he didn't have a chance. So David's.
Wow, come on now.
David's like.
He had every chance in the world.
The rectory would go way out. People can open his door. He has no locks on his door. Anybody can come in there and take advantage of David.
That's what he put on in the closet, in the corner.
The door's unlocked. I can't even keep people out of my room. Someone's always in there.
I know it's tough.
Oh.
What's happening with the two of you, Christine and Michael? You know, are we going somewhere with this? Is he just, what's happening? What's happening? Is he about to eat? Well, I won't say that. I misunderstand what I'm saying. Yeah, I know. Just at some point, is she feeling that there's something off with him, or is she just all into it?
Well, she has been the first season, I think, all into it, and just so excited to be with someone who just breaks all the rules and is a wild spirit. And I think she was held back by her former husband, Kristen's dad, and I think she's just exploding now with wanting to break all barriers and conventions. So I think she just is thrilled by him. But as we're getting into the second season, there will be some, I think, reckoning and some awareness. And the Kings can probably answer this better than me, but I'm hoping that she brings the mother effer down. Is my hope. Am I allowed to say mother effer?
Not on CBS.
Okay. So maybe the Kings can answer where Emerson and Michael and I are going.
I think what we loved is the idea of what Christine said, her attraction to danger. And the question is whether Michael's character manipulating her a bit and manipulating that love, but can he lose his emotions in the meantime? Even though it's a con, you know, one of the things that's interesting about the way Michael Emerson's playing it, but the character of Leland, is he has certain cons, but at a certain point, a con man has to believe his cons for them to be effective. And so do you lose yourself, just like they say with Christians in the making, you know, fake it till you make it. The reverse can happen with someone pretending to be somebody else. And that, I think, is what's interesting about Leland. But Michael, what do you think? Michael Emerson, what do you think?
I think they're a good pair. They're compatible and kind of hot with each other. All of that's good. They have equally a taste for mischief and rule breaking. The problem is that with Leland, you never know what the real plan is. And he's not one to be counted on for very long.
Well, a couple of characters discovered that with you, didn't they? Over the first season. A lot of, you know, that poor little boy who was trying to help you, you know, he just you kind of discard folks. And it's very interesting to watch. Now, is the antagonism that we first saw in the early episodes between Katya and Michael, is that, I know he's messing with her mother, but is there more? Is there more there? Is there something else happening in this that we're not seeing? I'll ask the Kings.
Oh, well, I'd love to hear what Katya said. Katya, do you mind going first, and then we'll say that you're wrong?
Great. That sounds like a good deal. I think he's out for me, right? I mean, I think there's something that he desperately wants to destroy in me, or maybe in people in my proximity, maybe Mike's character, and is going through my mother. Look, I think he's pure evil. So am I wrong?
Well, I do know you're not wrong, because the real question is, if you put a psychopath's motives over the devil's motives, how much are they identical? And that's what the show wants to explore. And I do think he loves corrupting innocence, just as you're seeing with influencers online, or, you know, people who are clout chasing online. Often the clout chasing is about doing something bad, not doing something good. So I do think that's an element of Leland.
Does he want a relationship with her? Because there have been a couple of times when I thought, is he liking her?
Can I say we didn't write it that way, but I sure get that in their performances.
Yeah.
I mean, in my
Wanting to defile her in any way. It's just an effort to corrupt, whether that's sexually or getting towards her daughters or her mother. I think it's just this instinct to make things awful.
And I think that Kristen is intrigued by, you know, people's minds, and Michael Emerson's or Leland's character is so extremely horrible that I think she's fascinated by it, and is sort of addicted to whatever that game is, and is ready to play. She comes and she'll play this game, and will try to defeat him at his own game.
I think Leland is naturally seductive almost all the time. I find you to always be seducing, with just naturally, not on purpose. I'm serious.
It's really something, because I sometimes I just think he just wants to see how far he can go with her, you know. But I think there's some. He feels connected, I think, to her. And that's when I'm not sure whether Michael, you are a demon, because you seem to be able to pop in and out of places. You appear places. I don't know if it's whose psychology we're seeing when we see you just sort of appear somewhere. I'm not sure whether it's Michael's psychology or it's Katya's psychology. I don't know if it's us, because you just, boom, you're there. And so I think, well, who gives you the power to do that? What allows that? Because you're embracing it. You might not be the devil, but you're pretty close.
I don't know what special powers he has, other than a kind of persuasiveness, and he's well read. But as Katya says, it's a lot of game playing, gamesmanship between the two of them. But there's also a sense in which she is a special target.
Yeah.
And in a sense, too, that they are both figures in a larger campaign, a larger war between organized forces on either side of the good and evil divide.
It's kind of fabulous. So now, what can you tell me about season 2 that you can share to just sort of whet everybody's appetite some more?
Well, I mean, we ended it with Katja's character placing a crucifix in her hand and it burning her hand. And one gets the sense that she did something very bad to this LaRue serial killer guy who was coming after her daughters. And so really, I think the big part of the beginning of the season is unpacking that. The other thing is Mike Coulter's character is having a countdown to ordination, which brings we talked to a lot of priests, how there's almost like the countdown to a wedding, the intensity of giving your life to somebody else. And do you really mean that? Almost the sense of temptations start flooding in the closer you get to that day. And Ben gets haunted, which is unclear whether he's getting Katja's night terrors. I'm sorry, I'm interchanging characters' names and actors' names. Kristen's night terrors. But I think with Ben, he's really becoming a bit terrified by the unreality of night terrors and how they kind of fuck with reality, how they, because he is the most pragmatic. So how does a pragmatic person deal with the terror of that unknown? And I would say, I don't know why we're going, but anyway, keep going. The first episode has Michael Emerson's character Leland coming to our team and saying he's possessed and wants an exorcism. It's unclear whether that's a con, what's real, but anyway, I would say that's where we start. And to go much deeper into where we go with Cheryl, with Christine Lottie's character, would probably be revealing too much.
Yes. I love that. Come in because you think you are possessed. I have to ask you, and I'm not going to remember his name. What is the demon on the ceiling's name?
Oh, George.
Is George coming back at any point?
Possibly. We're still kicking around that. But Joel Harlow, who devises our creatures, he's devised like 5 or 6 really cool ones this year that I think are really terrifying. They terrify me. Joel is this obsessive who sends over at odd times, usually at 2 a.m, these drawings he's done of a new creature. And it's just like we open it up and think, oh, we're getting something nice from our daughter. And then it's this ugly gray creature. So he's everything that almost terrifies you in the show that is a creature that he's devised it.
Okay. I'll ask you each the same question. I'll ask you one question. It's the same question for everyone. I'll start with the Kings. What's the scariest thing in this show? What has so far been the scariest thing in the show for you?
Oh, that is a really good question. I do think it's probably the birth in the cornfield. I think that one, I think the way James Whitmore Jr., who shot it, just shot it beautifully. And I just think Katja's performance there, I think, is real and horrifying. And, the good thing about the horror is it had comedy. The woman saying, welcome to the world, little one, and do you want to hold it to Katja, I think makes it scary and kind of funny, too.
And for me, I think it was the episode where the kids get the augmented reality that Grandma gave them. And suddenly evil is brought into their world and Kristen has no idea. I thought, the vulnerability of the children to the evil that's brought into their world, I thought was amongst the scariest.
What about you, Michael Emerson?
I find dolls and little girls really frightening. So the little ghost girl was, to me, hair-raising.
What about you, Katja?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm getting confused, the filming of it and the show, but I found it very scary when we had the Halloween episode and one of my girls, I had to pull her out of a grave.
Yeah.
I found that awful as a person in real life. And she was, so thrilled to be doing it. She's not traumatized from it at all. But yeah, I think that was the scariest thing for me.
What about you, Kurt?
Well, I actually can't believe that on network television, this show puts kids in danger so much. And it's so frightening to me having children. And when I first had my children, I couldn't read anything where anything happens to a child. I can do it now that they're older and I'm meaner, but this show puts kids in danger and it's very frightening and very central, but man, it really scares me just to see that.
What about you, Asif?
I think there's so many great scares in the show, and so many of them have to do with like supernatural stuff. But there was an episode that we did where we had these parents who had this little boy who was psychotic and or possessed, we don't know, and they end up, we think, killing him.
Yes,
because he was trying to kill their and that I'm a new parent, and just echoing what Kurt said, just the idea of that is so terrifying, like the moral and ethical and psychological dilemma that happened in that moment. And I think that is one of the most disturbing things that we ever did on this show, outside of all the other scary, great stuff. But that was very disturbing for me personally.
What about you, Christine?
Right now, I'm so scared. I know I won't be able to sleep after just remembering all these moments. Yeah, that little baby at the bottom of that swimming pool, when that kid tried to drown his sister, was a bad one. I get so scared when I don't know if something's real or not. Like Katya with George, I don't know, or Michael Emerson talking to his therapist, who's this huge devil, like this with the ram horns, and he's just having a normal conversation with this devil. And those kinds of things really spook me, because the characters themselves are playing it so realistically, but then we know it's just in their imagination. We find out. That scares me.
What about you, Michael?
Which one?
Okay.
Oh, so yeah, no worries. I mean, I think just like Asif and Kurt said, the baby in the pool thing, because I remember jumping into the pool and I was having a hard time. We had real babies to kind of work with, and then obviously the not real baby in the water at the bottom. And just my daughter was pretty young at the time, and I think she may have still not been walking. So I had a baby at home, very similar in age to this, and I have an older daughter. So older kids do get jealous of younger kids, and they don't have that sort of anger if they're rational. But there are times when I look at my older daughter, because there was a new kid in the house, watching her behavior change, and also looking at her and realizing that she didn't like the younger sister at first. Yeah. So for a while, you didn't really want to leave her alone because you just didn't know what she's thinking. Like, it's just one of those innocent things that children look at it as a competition. This little baby's getting all the competition, and it used to be just me. So that sort of is disturbing to me. And also, I think the Halloween with the girl in the mask coming in the house and no one knew who she was, and no one took the mask off. And I'm sitting there going, are you crazy? Are you absolutely crazy? This little girl has to take the mask off right now. Turn the lights on, take the mask off, you gotta go home. I can't.
Can I say one other, which is Nurse Block? I think that was the scary performance. Nurse Block from the hospital episode.
Oh yeah. Of course, how could I forget that? Oh my God, yeah.
I know, I want to forget that. And part of that was all performance. I mean, that was a terrifying one.
Yeah. Just say the Kings couldn't be nicer. I've known them. They're very nice people, and it's been a bit of a shock to me knowing them, that this darkness exists somewhere. It really is.
Well, the greatest thing about it is it exists, I think, in each one of us. Yes. Because we all have these questions, and that's the beauty of the show. That's why I think people are so intrigued by it, because they recognize in each of these things, you know, maybe they're not trying to kill their boss, but it's crossed their mind. You know, things have crossed people's minds. And I think that this allows people to go, yeah. Mm-hmm. And what really scares people is knowing that outside of the door, someone may be trying those things or trying to connect to those things. And I think that's what scares us, is that some of those people that we're seeing on the show are actually out there.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to say thank you for talking to me. It's been really great. And I have to tell you again, I don't watch a lot of television, but the television I watch has to sort of grab me and hold me. And this show, from the first 5 minutes when she's talking about the gentleman who's in jail, you know, and she's talking about who she feels he is. And when Michael Coulter comes in and says, listen, I'm with the Catholic Church, I'm like, okay, I got to watch that. I need to see this because I need to understand how this is going to work. And it's a wonderful, great show, wonderful performances from all of you, not a bad performance anywhere. And it's just such a thrill and an honor to get to talk to y'all because I'm really proud of what you do. So that's my fan.
Thanks, Whoopi.
Thank you so much.
I now have to say to the nice people who have watched this, thank you for joining us for this special PaleyFest conversation with members of the wonderful cast and creative team behind Evil. Can I do my evil thing? Can I just do it for 1 second? Okay. The special PaleyFest conversation with the members of the wonderful cast and creative team behind Evil. Thanks to Paley's Fest, official card Citi, and festival sponsor Verizon. You can learn more about the Paley Center by visiting paleycenter.org. Thank you and take care.
Thank you, Whoopi.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Really great.